Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my weekly reading wrap up. But the first thing I'm going to start with today is an unboxing. It's only of one thing, and it's of something that I ordered over 2 months ago, and because of COVID they were behind, and then Etsy had my wrong shipping address, which is just boggling to me because I haven't lived in that place for 6 years, and everything else I've ordered from Etsy has come to where I live now. But this one item got rerouted to where I used to live. And so luckily the store that I bought this from, they worked with the post office in that area and were able to get it rerouted to me. But I'm so excited. So this is something I ordered for myself that has to do with Outlander, and I'm very excited to see it. So just give me 1 second here. It was a bit of a splurge for myself, but I wanted it so bad, and I have been wanting it. And I wanted a way to put my beautiful books on display in a more like fun way. And so what I ordered for myself, hold on, they're wrapped in bubble wrap. Oh my God, they're so beautiful. Is these bookends. It's so beautiful. You got to pick what kind of wood it was made out of. And so there's Jamie and Claire trying to touch on either sides of the stone. It's so beautiful. Oh my God. It's even more beautiful than I thought. These are just so pretty. I'll link the store down below that I got. I'm just kind of in awe. Sorry, I'm like trying not to cry. But so I'm going to put a set of my Outlander books in between them and have it up on display. It'll probably be in my room because I want to look at it. So it might not be something that's like visible in videos all the time, but I just had to have it. So there we go. I just had to start with that. Oh my gosh. They're so beautiful. I can't handle it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's get into what I read this week. It seems that I got through 15 books, which is about normal. That's about what I get through during the week. But this was a crazy week. I read some new absolute favorites. If you noticed, yesterday, my Midnight Sun vlog went up, so you'll see that in here in a minute. I was traveling this weekend. I went to visit one of my best friends in Duluth, Minnesota. So that's why I put up the Midnight Sun vlog in place of this vlog, which isn't a vlog, but my weekly wrap up, which you're getting Monday morning. But I went shopping at my favorite bookstore on the way there. I put those pictures up on Instagram. It was so much fun. I found some really cool ones. Those will be in a haul sometime soon. Oh my gosh, a fly got in while I was doing some stuff. And he's biding his time because I'm going to get him. But let's go ahead and dive in. So the first book that I read last week was I read The Duke with the Dragon Tattoo, which was for my disability rep for the summer fling. And this ended up being work for disability 2 times because our hero, he has amnesia, and he's a character that we have thought is dead during the whole series. Although I didn't really think he was dead because I knew what this is. But there's this character called the Rook that we've been hearing about for the past couple books, and he's a pirate and thief. And so Dorian Blackwell had been trying to like make a, kind of a pact with him or something. And then the Rook has been wanting to know about his past, and he found out that the man who had done his dragon tattoo was someone who worked for Dorian Blackwell. So he's on a mission to find this guy. Also, this story starts with when the Rook is found as a child. He goes by the name of Ash. He's rescued by this girl and her family. This girl is a cripple. She has a twisted ankle, and so she has a limp. So she also is has a disability. So he has amnesia, doesn't remember anything before waking up next to, what's her name? Sorry, Lorelai. So yeah, this is the 6th book in the series. It's the last traditionally published one in the series. I will be reading book 7, which is about Detective Morley, who we met in the first book when he was kind of courting, you know, the highwayman's woman. So that didn't work out well for him. But I'm really excited to read that one as well. So this was great. This was 5 stars for me. I again listened to this on Audible Escape. This entire series is on there. I really, really loved it. And yeah, I mean, it's painful though, because all of these books have pain. But I still have one more to read, but of the traditionally published 6, I think that The Hunter is still my favorite, closely with The Highwayman, but The Hunter just, oh, I love that book so much. So then I read Dark Mafia Prince by Annika Martin. This book has been on my Kindle forever because it was suggested to me by Fated Mates as like the origin of where Take the Thing. It has to do with these 3 brothers who were betrayed and their parents killed by a different member of the mafia. And to get back at this guy, they take over his home, they blow it up, they kidnap his daughter, and then are going to use his daughter as leverage to find out where their youngest brother is being kept. So this was fun. It was dark, like it said. There's a lot of interesting scenarios we get into. There's some CNC that takes place in here, which is consensual non-consent, if you didn't know. It's also got some captive stuff going on as well. And this is the first in a trilogy, I think. And it was good. I haven't read a mafia book in a little while. So, well, that's not true. I read one that was mafia adjacent last week, but this one was more hardcore mafia stuff going on. And I had a really good time with it. I did give that one 4 stars though. Just because I didn't emotionally connect with it as much as I have with other mafia books. So that's something that happens. Then I read Scoring Off the Field by Naima Simone. This one was a friends to lovers sports romance. And we're dealing with this girl and boy who they were like raised in the foster system together. And then the boy, he ends up getting adopted, but still stays really close with this girl. And he kind of like brings her up with him. So he becomes a professional football player. He makes her his personal assistant. He basically, well, personal assistant is a job that exists, but at the time he doesn't need one. So he creates this job for her as a way to, you know, keep her comfortable, keep her happy, because she's his best friend. And she is hopelessly in love with him. So she's his personal assistant for 6 or so years. She has a degree in social work, and she wants to start doing that. Also, she realizes that she is too deeply in love with him to make wise choices. And so she needs to leave him and get another job somewhere. And he immediately doesn't want her to leave or go anywhere. But he doesn't realize that the main reasons is because he's in love with her. And so drama ensues because of that. So yeah. I gave this one 4 stars. It was very sexy, like, oof, there was some heat between them, but I'm not a huge fan when a girl has been pining. And granted, this one is kind of a special case because we're meeting her at like the end of her pining, because she's like, I'm done pining. I need to pick myself up by my bootstraps and stop being in love with my best friend and move on. And so I appreciate that about her, but still I just hate when a girl pines. I don't even really like when a guy pines if it's for a long time. Like if a guy just realizes he has feelings and starts pining, I'm fine with that. But this was overly long, stretched out pining, and I wasn't a fan of it. So I only gave it 4 stars, but that's not an only. Like, it was good. I don't regret reading it, but I won't probably ever like read it again, right? So then I read some interesting books. All right. One of my wonderful subscribers, Alana, messaged me on Instagram and asked if she could send me some books from Kay Webster and Seven Rue. because she had bought these taboo books from the author, read them, liked them, but wasn't going to keep them, and didn't want to dispose of them at a used bookstore or library and like scare the bejesus out of somebody who didn't know what these books were about. And I had already read one of them, but I hadn't read any of the other books, so she sent them to me, and I kind of gobbled them all up really quickly. So the first thing that I read Hail by Kay Webster, which is a brother and sister incest story. Holy crap, it's as twisted and crazy as you think. This couple, their parents have died, and so they're being taken care of by, I think it's an aunt, and they have feelings for each other, and it goes places. This one, I don't know. It wasn't the incest that made it weird. There was just other things about the love story that I didn't love. So I ended up giving this one I gave this one a 3-star because it just wasn't as good as the book I'm about to talk to you about. So this was okay. Definitely there's something about like brother sister that's the weirdest of all the taboos for me. Okay, it's the weirdest of the incest taboo for me, which is interesting. P.S. If you haven't heard yet, my friend Tamika from Library and Tomes and I are going to be doing a taboo book club, and spoiler alert, incest is going to be one of our taboo topics in a coming month. So if you're interested in trying out a taboo book, that's going to be a possibility later on if you want to read it with people. You can find the Taboo Book Club in my Discord. There is a channel that's for our Taboo Book Club, so you can check that out down below. But anyway, so I gave this one 3-star. But then I read The Wild by Kay Webster, which this was just kismet that I got sent to me because I really, really, really had been wanting to read this, and I just hadn't like worked my guts up to it yet. And when Alana when she showed me the picture of which books they were, I basically said yes for this one, and then, you know, I've liked a couple of the others. But this story, I feel like you've probably heard about the most of a lot of incest books, because it is the book that kind of like pushed Kay Webster into starting Eden Books, which is a independent ebook, audiobook sales for authors who do taboo stories because Amazon bans stuff. But anyway, this book is about a girl. There's signed copies too, which is super cool. This book is about Devin and Reed. And so Reed is the father, and he takes his wife and his 16-year-old daughter out to the wilderness, and something goes horribly wrong where there is a landslide, and their RV like falls off the side of a cliff, and the mother dies, leaving Reed and Devin alone together. And there had already been some undertones happening between them, and now they're the only two. They're alone together. They're the only two. And Devin, she feels confused by her feelings. Reed is trying to fight his feelings. And so anytime that Devin like will go too far, Reed will like react pretty strongly because he's like, this is wrong. I'm evil for feeling this. What am I going to do about it? And things progress. And wow. I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. It was a car crash you can't look away from. It's even said in like the like warning for it that she's like, there is going to be those moments where you're going to cringe many, many, many times. And if you're on the fence, you shouldn't read this book. Like, she gives a clear warning on like, there's 3 warning pages in this. She gives like 3 different warnings about what you're getting into. And I'm warning you. Just because your favorite taboo lady on YouTube has read it, think twice or 3 times about reading it. However, there's a certain thing about this book that I knew going into it ahead of time that made it more palpable to me. But I love this. I gave it 5 stars. Then I immediately had to read the like sequel slash like duet to it, although it is a sequel because you would like need to read The Wild to know who these characters are. But there is a sequel called The Free, which is about which is another, so it's an age gap. It starts out as just a very taboo age gap because in The Wild, Reed comes across some characters, some people who cross him and Devon, like cross as in like they crossed him, and Devon kills those people. Or I mean Reed, not Devon. Devon doesn't kill. Reed kills those people and leaves behind a young girl who was the daughter and sister of the men he killed, and they had been raping her. And so there's incest happening on, like, she's being raped by it. And so at said time, Reed leaves her to herself because she is a little bit feral and she's taking care of herself. And so now it's been a few years, and there's another character in The Wild who he is, I think he's like 40. We're supposed to know he's 40. And he's someone who has become friends with Reed and Devon. And he periodically checks in on this girl. And when she gets mauled, like she gets mauled by, I don't know if it's a bear or something else, but she gets hurt, he ends up taking care of her. And because she's never been taught, like she's only ever been taught to like please or be available to her brother and fathers, she is making herself available to this man who saved her. And he's like, honey, I'm twice your age and that's bad. That shouldn't be a thing. And she's like, well, what's wrong with me? Because she's doesn't like age limit, age bound, that's not a thing to her. Okay. So it's a taboo age gap with some twists. And I won't say anymore because I think that like the free was, I think, will be more palpable to some people than The Wild was, but you should probably read The Wild before you read The Free. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one as well. So that was 5 stars for me too. So yeah, those were my 3 uber taboo books that I read for the last week, and they were intense, that's for sure. So then I read The Stopover by T.L. Swan. I read this for Big City Life. This is the first book in the Mile High series, which I read book 2, The Takeover, the week before, and I was in love with it. Like, I was freaking in love with it. And so The Stopover, I didn't think that I had read it because I didn't have it marked on my Goodreads, and I didn't remember the characters, like, because we're introduced to the characters who were in that book in The Takeover because they're brothers, and I didn't recognize him. But as soon as I started reading The Stopover, I had read it. I had just read it probably at 2 a.m. over Christmas time, and I didn't mark it as read on my Goodreads. So I reread it, and this time around, I only gave it a 3.5 star. I don't know what I felt about it the first time. So there's something about T.L. Swan that if you are really into her story, like, you'll love it because she writes very long books. And I like that sometimes because a lot of times ebooks I find run kind of short. Like, they'll be 250 to 300 pages. And if I'm really loving characters, I want that story to last longer. And so she does that. Like, Our Way, which I read last week, was 560 pages. The Takeover was like 500 pages. This one was like 440 pages, I think. And it's about a woman who she's flying from LA to New York, I think, for a job interview. And the guy in front of her in line for the airplane like throws her stuff around, and so the airline bumps her up to first class, and she ends up sitting by this guy named Jim, and they just flirt up a freaking storm. And then when they get diverted to Chicago, I think because of bad weather, they end up having a hot and sexy night together. Then a year later, she has the opportunity to have that job interview again. And of course, it's his company. It's Miles Media. And she ends up getting a job there. And they start their relationship again. The thing that's hard about them is that these two just like fight so much. And T.L. Swan does that in her books. She does. Like, characters fight. Like, The Takeover was an anomaly for how little conflict there was until the main conflict. But she does write characters that are pretty combative with each other in some ways. And the conflict in this one was just a little too, I was like, really, guys? Like, this shouldn't be a conflict. It was annoying. So that one was only a 3.5, but in general, I really like T.L. Swan, so take it for whatever. Then I read A King So Cold by Ella Field, which, again, another book that has been on my Kindle since it came out, I think, back in March. This was on Kindle Unlimited. This is a romantic fantasy. I'm trying to read more romantic fantasies so that I can make another recommendations video, because you guys always want romantic fantasy, and I don't read too many of them, and the ones that I read are not always the level of romance and the level of fantasy that I want, because for me, I want them to be equal. I want just as much sex as I do magic. Okay, like, I want it to be an equal thing, and that's not how most of them are. This one, however, it was very dark fantasy, and it's about this queen. She is the Winter Queen, and she has, how to explain this story. I'm planning to do another video where I do 6 unique favorites, where you guys really loved that video, so I'm planning to do another one of those soon, so I'll try to keep this a little more brief. But this queen, it starts out in present time, where she's married still to the Summer Prince, who doesn't remember who he is. So there, for some reason, her and him had a parting of ways, and he has no memory of who he is, and he happens to be about to marry someone else. And so though this queen does not want to be with the Summer King anymore, she still goes, stops his wedding, kidnaps him, and throws him in her dungeon, and is determined to make him remember what he did to mess her up, and then she's going to kill him. But she won't kill him until he fully understands how much he fucked her over. She also currently has a bedmate, is what I would call him, who she is supposed to be creating an alliance with. They're supposed to get married, but they can't be married until she either has her relationship dissolved with the Summer King or kills him. And in this fae world, because they're fae of some kind is how I would describe them, you can both agree to have a divorce, or like, that's how you get one, is you just agree to be done, or kill him. So yeah, that's all I'll like say. The first half, because this book is long too, which I loved it. I loved it so much. There's going to be a sequel to it, and I want it so bad. I can't remember what it's called. And also what it's called is kind of a spoiler, because it tells how people end up at the end. So I wouldn't name it even if I remembered it. But the first half of it is her telling him back their love story to try to make him remember who he is. And there's a whole lot of other drama going on too. Her kingdom is on the edge of going to war with his kingdom, because she, banished their prince. And there's so many things that get revealed during this. I loved this story. It's everything I want in a romantic fantasy. It reminded me a lot of Fortuna Sworn in certain ways. This queen, she is so powerful and badass and a little bit evil. I would call this kind of like an anti-hero story. The sex and romance in this series is freaking amazing, and I can't wait for more. I'm definitely going to be buying a hard copy of that one for you to ogle, because when you look at that cover, it's gorgeous. And I loved it. I told Jess to read it, and she said she'd heard some not great things about it. And here's the thing, I find with romantic fantasy, the things that I love about it aren't always what other people like. But I mean, it reminded me of Fortuna Sworn, and I haven't seen anyone really give Fortuna Sworn a bad, because it's that fantasy where it's like dark. Like, it does what a YA fantasy can't, because it goes for the blood. Like, it goes for the blood. There is some trigger warnings for assault, for gore, and for suggested rape is what I would say. Like, someone is taunted with it, right? So I didn't see any rape on page, but there was like threat of it, which I know can trigger some people. Anyway, so then I read The Housemate by Kendall Ryan. This is continuing a series that these books were all on Audible Escape, so I was reading them, but it was only okay. This is a nanny story. So he is a architect, and his ex-girlfriend shows up and drops off a 1-year-old kid at his doorstep and says she can't handle it anymore and leaves. I love stories like this. I really do. They're really fun. And he ends up hiring a nanny, and then she isn't fully she basically becomes a live-in nanny, because that's part of the contract they negotiated. She needs a place to live. Because she wants to get out on her own, and so she does. And then it's also kind of an age gap, but it's one of those, like, I don't call something an age gap trope unless the age gap is like a significant part of the story. In this case, she's 23 and he's like 35, but they're having different ages, like, doesn't come into their story at all. So while it's an age gap story in the technicality, I wouldn't really call it that, because I only really put stuff on my age gap trope if it is a main point of the story. Like, the age gap is either so big that it's a thing, or one of the characters cares about it, and neither of them. It's more of like him being her boss. That's the like conflict in this. Then I read Hello Stranger by Jade West. This book has a lot of triggers, as a lot of Jade West books might. However, those triggers don't have to do with anything you might expect. The triggers all have to do with death of a loved one, death of a parent, terminal illnesses, depression. So more of the like mental health triggers, not physical things. I don't get triggered, but I had a lot of feels, and I would be irresponsible if I didn't warn you about those feels. This is about two people. This one's also an age gap. It's about a doctor and a nurse. And the doctor, he is 40 years old, 41, and he has a mother who's dying of cancer, and she has been dying for a while. And so because of that, he has very much closed his life off from others. And he is his mother's carer. He also is a doctor in the like he works with other people who are dying. Like, that's what he does, is he works with other people who are dying. And there's this woman that he sees on the train every day, and they're always both reading a book, and so every day they'll like show each other what they're reading and maybe say hi and chat about it, and then he'll say goodbye when she gets off the train. And every day she's like trying to work herself up to say more to him. She's in a relationship with a boyfriend who's just stopped paying attention to her, so she eventually breaks up with him and then moves out of his house and gets a new job. And that new job is being a nurse at this doctor's hospital. And so she is actually his nurse. And so right away their flirting kind of intensifies. And when they go out on not together, they don't go out together, they go to a work function together, some of the other employees tell her, he's never going to make a move on you because he's your superior, he's the doctor, he's not risking anything. You have to ask him out. So one day, instead of getting off at her stop on the train, she goes all the way to his house and gets off the train. And he brings her home, to the home where his mother is, where he takes care of his mother. And they start a relationship, and his mother is so wonderful and so happy to have someone in her son's life. And his mother has a bucket list of things she's trying to do before she dies, and this new woman in his life just wants to help any way she can, but he's hiding a couple of secrets, as you do. And this is a very emotional book. Like, I read it and I cried so hard. And then when I was telling my best friend about it, who I was just visiting, I cried at Applebee's while I was telling her about it, because I'm a big damn baby, and it was really emotional, but it was beautiful. Jade West, she puts a lot of herself into her stories. And so the character of our hero's mother is based on a dear friend of hers. And there's actually a lot of dialogue from that character that was written by her real life friend who has a terminal illness. So there is some serious emotional trigger warnings to this, but it was really beautiful, and it was a very soft romance. Like, there's no kink in this book, like every other book by Jade West, full of these beautiful, fun kinks. Like, they're all a little bananas, and they're so much fun. And I've learned about so many different kinks from reading her books. This one is just a beautiful, gut-wrenching romance. So I'm warning you about the pain, but it was very good. I had a wonderful time reading it. All right, then I read Ruthless by Anne Stewart. And so I actually had this on, I had this on Kindle Unlimited, not Kindle Unlimited. I'd purchased it because it was one that had an age gap and a sex club in it, and it's a historical romance. And then I found that it was on Audible Escape. That's what happened. So this book is an age gap. This book is a man who owns a sex club. This is also set in the 1780s, which is not a time period I usually enjoy reading about. But yeah, it's about this woman who, her mother is dying of syphilis, the French disease. And so she is like gambling away all their money. She's going crazy. She's very violent. And so her and her younger sister are trying to keep the family together. And so when her mom steals the rest of their money and runs away to this sex club / casino, this woman follows her mother there and interacts with the owner of the club, who, oh my goodness, sexy as hell, gets her mother out of there and basically offers her a deal. Well, he blackmails her a little bit. It's one of those. It's one of those sex deals where it's a little bit of blackmail, but also he's trying to help her at the same time. He offers to put her sister and like her nursemaid and her, well, not the nursemaid, like just some other people in their household in one of his homes in the countryside, if she will live with him for a month and be at his sexual mercy. So it would say. And it was so hot. So hot. There's also a, is there a killer going around? There's killing happening. I'll say that. I gave this book, Ruthless, I ended up giving 4 stars. Dang, this was one of those that the buildup took too long for me. The sexual tension was insane. Insane. And no sex scenes happen until like 70% in. And then there was only one. And I don't like that level of blue balls, okay? I just don't. That's not what I'm here for. I want more satisfaction. But the story was great. The characters were awesome. If you don't want as much sex in your historical romances, this could be a good one for you. So check out Ruthless. Then, all right, I did it. We talked about it at the beginning. I read Midnight Sun. Well, there's a whole vlog up. It is 45 minutes long, which has my thoughts while I'm reading it. And I gave this 5 stars. I cried many times reading this book. I've already had some feedback from you guys that you were happy that I liked it and that I was honest about what I liked. There was very little that I didn't like. This book is not just a redux of Twilight, okay? Instead of this being, because it's 660 pages, which is 160 pages more than Twilight, okay? But it is not just 150 pages of new content. It's more the other way. This is about 500 pages of new content with 160 like scene for scene redux, but from Edward's point of view. There is loads of Cullen time. There is loads of more backstory, more fleshed out backstory. If you are someone who loves the history of things, or you read the Twilight companion that Stephanie put out like 5 or so years ago now. It was longer than that because it came out before the Twilight flipped version. But I adored it. I read every word of this book. I thought I would be skimming it. I thought that I would just look for the new things and get through it. It was action-packed in some places. It was heartbreaking in other things. And I feel like Stephanie tries to answer a lot of questions about the character of Edward and things that have annoyed us when we're in Bella's point of view. And I had such a wonderful time, because here's the thing. A point of view of Edward is a point of view of all of the Cullens. Okay, that's what you're getting when you read it from Edward's point of view. I got to learn so much more about the minds of each Cullen, and I love that. Like, Emmett Cullen is one of my favorite literary characters. Like, he just always sits in there because I've always just loved him, because I love family and friends in books. And Midnight Sun gave me so much of that. So it was honestly like, there was parts about the love story that were still fun. I ended up counting this as a sweet and clean for my summer fling, because I just love when a character hasn't felt a kind of emotion and then feels it. And Edward knows what love is. Not only does he feel it for his family, but he's seen what his family feels for each other. And like, he knows what that feeling of having a mate, a helpmeet, a lover is like. But it's a secondhand emotion. And so when he feels it himself, it completely consumes everything that he ever was before. And I loved that. And you know what? If you weren't as into Twilight as a kid, or if you fell away from it and you just can't bear it, I understand. Like, this is never me pressuring you into something. I'm speaking more to the people who, you're waiting for some reviews to come out, you're unsure if you want to get back into the world again, you don't know what new this book could offer to you. I'm telling you, it does those 3 things. Like, it fulfilled my expectations, which I was purposely keeping low. I was keeping my expectations low so that I wouldn't be disappointed. It fulfilled them. It gave me new insight into characters, which I wanted so badly. And it gave me more time with my favorite people. And there is some amazing scenes that, having them from Edward's point of view, you won't regret it. Like, if you're a fan in any capacity, you won't regret it. I can't wait till more people have read it, because I just want to fangirl with people. And it like, I'm an easily obsessive person, and I will tell you that it made me want to do 2 things. First off, it made me want to keep reading the series, which I'm not really going to reread them, because I want to still love them, so I won't be just like rereading just because. And number 2, it made me want all of the books in Edward's point of view, even though I know that Stephanie will probably never do that, because it's just not like worth it financially for her, or maybe for her dreams to do. But man, did it make me want things, or just scenes like, God, because I'm a romance hoe, it makes me want Breaking Dawn from his point of view so bad. Even though Stephanie does clearly still write YA, like, it's very flowery in the way of like Edward, just like the way he describes things. Not flowery, but just like when he's having a conversation with Bella, she says one thing, he's able to think, 100 times faster than her. So there's the whole page of his inner thoughts before he answers her. So in Twilight, where she's just having a conversation with him and it's going back and forth, he may have 10 pages of inner thoughts, and I like them because they're fun inner thoughts, besides the ones where he's being broody, which is a lot of the time. I loved it. I freaking loved it. So yeah, no shame. I loved it. Then I read The Beast of Bethk, because yes, after listening to the Audible, I bought the audio for this, so this isn't on KU. This is our book club pick for the book Refuge on my Discord. We are reading The Beast of Bethk and The Betrothed this month. And this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It is two characters who are just like very headstrong. We have this girl named, what's her name? Astrid Everly. And she's about to come into her inheritance. And her and her younger sister, Isabel, live with her aunt and uncle. And her aunt and uncle are trying to like hand her off to someone, basically. And there is this guy that's coming after her younger sister because she previously spurned his advances when he tried to assault her, and now he's going after her younger sister, and her aunt and uncle don't really care if he gets her or not. So she turns to Lord Nathaniel Hart, who is the Duke of Bethk, and first she tries to marry him, and he like is just like, no, I don't want a wife, I don't want kids, I don't want any of that, because he is a scarred war hero. Now, we're talking seriously scarred. Like, part of his hair is missing because he was just tortured for his country. He has scars all down his back and his front and most of his face. So we're talking about, like, you know, another case where I hate when art has a scarred hero and they can't even bother to like do some work on that, or at least like have the hero be covered, because this man, like, he literally will like wear a hat, and like he'll wear a hat to cover his head in front of people. He like never takes off his clothes. Even their first like 4 love scenes, he won't take off his clothes because he's afraid of scaring her. But anyway, he ends up in the beginning saying no to her marriage proposal. So instead she catalogs his father's antiques, and they're going to have an auction to raise money for charity. He was just grumpy and delicious, and it's one of those where he has an aunt who comes to stay with them to be chaperone. Also, like, his staff is trying to make it happen. So this one felt very Beauty and the Beast to me, with a very headstrong woman, and I loved it. She also loves horses. She wears like her own homemade like breeches to ride, and I love her. So I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. I had a wonderful time. Then the last 2 books that I read, I listened to this entire series, I think, or the first like good chunk of it is all on Audible Escape. And after reading IAD and absolutely loving it, I wanted to find another paranormal series to start. So I picked, on my TBR for the summer fling was Slave to Sensation, and I read this book for authors of color because Neilani Singh is an author of color. Here's a picture of her. And it's also, I picked it for hot and spicy because it has some changeling loving happening. All right. Okay. I was freaking out on Twitter as I was reading this because, so we have the Psys, which are they're like a kind of evolutionized human that has different psychic abilities. That's why they're called the Psy. There is people with foresight, there's people with medical training, there's people with telekinesis, telepathic, like there's all these different kinds. But because they were overly emotional, and that could cause them a lot of problems, in 1969, they started a program called the Silence. And then by the time of 1979, they put it as a forced thing that no Psy can have feelings. So from the time they're very, very young, they are trained to not have any feelings. So now it is 100 years later. So it's 2079. So this is also a futuristic story. The Psy, nobody even knows that the Psy ever really had emotions because it's just a thing. And there are also this race called the Changelings, which are people who turn into animals. And so we are introduced to the alpha of the Dark River pack, which is a leopard pack. And their alpha, Lucas, is making a deal with Sasha and part of the Psy to, like, it's still literally a business deal. They're going to be selling like condos to different changelings. Yeah, to different changelings. And he his people have had some women go missing, and they've been tortured and killed. And the wolf pack in the area, which is called I can't remember what the wolf pack is called, the Snow Dancer, the Snow Dancer pack, they've just had another female taken, and Lucas is trying to infiltrate the council by using Sasha to find out what the council knows about this, because the Psy don't have any emotions. They say that their people can't have, there couldn't be any serial killers or anything, which actually they're literally creating a bunch of people who are sociopaths because they don't know how to feel anything. And so the reason this is called Slave to Sensation is, oh God, I'm getting so excited. Here it goes. Because the changelings, especially, I don't know if this will be like for all the races, because I've only met really the one so far. The cats have these things called skin privileges because their race needs affection to survive. That is how they communicate and do anything, is through touch. Guys, if you're new here, I am big into love languages, and my love language is touch. So whenever I read a book that uses touch as a love language outside of sex, okay, because obviously in this series between mates, it's a sexual touch. However, it's not only between mates in this case. So Sasha, who's from a very, sterilized world, there's not really any touching that happens. The instant she's around Lucas, he's constantly touching her, and it's not even yet when it's sexual, even though sexual feelings come very soon. That's just how they become friendly and affirm, is touching. And so in the beginning though, he's you don't have skin privileges, we can't touch. Later on, you get given skin privileges. And so he has an inner pack. They're called his sentinels. They're his, second in commands, and people who protect him and their young ones and such like that. They all touch each other in confirmation. So there will be, later on into it, there's other members of his sentinel group that they will touch her. And she's not used to that. He is touching her as a possessive touch, but other members of that group, they will also touch her to show that they trust her. You're being very, vulnerable when you allow someone to caress your hair or to kiss you. Other members of his pack will kiss her cheek or even kiss her on the lips, and it's to show that they trust her and that they will protect her. And I just melted into a little pile of goo because I love that so much. I love it so much. Anyway, so that's the first book. The second book is Visions of Heat, and this is about Vaughn D'Angelo, who is actually a jaguar changeling who has been taken in by the I just forgot what they are. They're Panther, yeah, who's taken in by the Panther clan because he lost his family. And there is this F-Psy, so she has the power of foresight, who's starting to have visions of some bad things happening. And so she had heard about Sasha, who had left the Psynet and joined the changelings, and she wants to interact with Sasha and find out some information. And so they're obviously, the changelings are very protective of Sasha. She is their alpha's mate. And so to get in contact with Sasha, she has to go through Vaughn, who it becomes very clear to Vaughn that Faith is going to be his mate. And so, however, the F-Psy, they're kept more isolated than any other kind of Psy because of their special gift that they have. They are literally kept in a plastic bubble. Their vitals are monitored, their health is monitored, and they will eventually go mad one day from their visions. And so the Psy try to get as much use out of them as they possibly can before they go mad. And because she's been touched even less than Sasha ever was, she can actually have sensory overload and have a seizure if she's touched too much. And Vaughn realizes very quickly that they're going to have to work on that because he knows that she's his mate. And so he goes about not desensitizing her to his touch, but sensitizing her to his touch is what it's called. And I'm hooked already. Damn it. I've downloaded the next 3 books on my Audible Escape account, and be prepared for an IAD level freak out, because not only is this a paranormal romance, not only does it have animal like changelings, which I love, it also has physical touch as like a main affirmation of love and affection between sexual partners and community. And I'm so happy. It sounds like my perfect series, so I'm excited for this. But anyway, okay. I knew this was going to be a long one because I had 15 books to talk about, and they were, a lot of them, really good to me. So thank you so much for watching this. Ouch, Jiminy Crickets. I should show you an update. I have read 5. I've read 6 out of my 12 prompts for Summer Fling, so I'm halfway done, which is super exciting, and I'm having a good time with that. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. I do recommendation videos, so let me know if there's any tropes you'd like to know more about. And otherwise, I'll catch you on Instagram, my Discord, or Twitter. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.